Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Buddy Staples video. Today I'm going to be talking about Danger World. Danger World has quite a bit of good staples spread around between a couple of different archetypes, and primarily what Danger World wants to be doing is interacting with the weapon in some way, and it's also kind of like a pseudo control color, so it likes to have lots of disruption elements in various different forms. As a result, some of their staples could be from various different archetypes. Most of the time it's just going to be lots of draw and gauge cards, and then other times it's going to be different forms of disruption. So to start off the list, we have Members Only Club Deadeity. This is a set spell. It could fit into any world even though it's a Godpunk card. So what it does is at the beginning of your opponent's main phase, choose and use one of the two abilities. Your opponent drops a hand card and you draw a card, or drop one of your opponent's gauge and you charge 2 gauge, and then you can only have one of it set per turn. So not only is this hand disruption or gauge disruption, it also can increase your gauge or have you draw cards. So it's just a very good card in general and can fit into basically any Danger World deck. Next, we have Fanged Dragon Declaration. You may only cast this when only one card on your field is attacking and when your opponent casts a spell. So you pay 2 gauge, pay 1 life, and you nullify the spell. This is their spell null. Because Danger World has lots of high power, like high crit monsters, you generally want them to go through, so Fanged Dragon Declaration can help nullify the spells during the combat step. Next, we have Burst Deity Calling Ritual. So for the low cost of paying a gauge and paying a life, you draw a card, then if you have a weapon equipped, you draw an additional card. So it's a draw 2 card that can squeeze into any Danger World deck because almost all Danger World decks are going to be running a weapon of some sort. Next, we have Immense Pressure. This is another draw spell. You can only cast this card if you have a card with 4 crit or more on your field and you draw 2, and you can only use it once per turn. It's just a free draw 2 in the right circumstances. For Danger World, it's not super hard to get certain weapons or monsters crit up to 4. It's just a relatively good and free draw 2. Next we have Demon Slay Dreadful Pressure. So counter, destroy a monster on your field. If you do, put the top card of your deck into your gauge, gain 1 life, draw 1 card. You can only use it once per turn. So certain Danger World decks have synergies with destroying your own stuff or wanting your own stuff to be destroyed, and this card helps feed into those strategies. But on top of that, it also is just a really solid charge 1, gain 1, draw 1. Next we have Starved Yamigedo. So this is another set spell. When a monster on your field is destroyed, put the top card of your deck into your gauge. So this is one of those staples that just feed into wanting to destroy your own stuff, or when your own stuff is destroyed, it's just rewarding you by giving you more gauge for doing so. We have Lord Aura Meditation as the next card, and this is just a counter speed charge 2. Next we have Grand Cadaver Catapult. Most of the time you're just going to be using it for its top ability, so it's a set spell. All abilities of cards on your field can't be nullified by your opponent's card effects. So just that first part alone can help a lot of Danger World decks, and if you're playing dual golems, you have the added benefit of the second part. Next we have Amassed Spinning Aural. You put the top card of your deck into your gauge, then if you have 6 or less life, you draw a card. It's just a solid way of just trying to gain more gauge and draw more cards. Next we have Bold Retaliation. You may only cast this card when you are dealt damage, and then counter, put cards from the top of your deck equal to that number of damage dealt to you into your gauge. So this is just another way of gaining lots of gauge really quickly. Next we have Survival Chance. Its cast cost is pay 1 gauge. You may only cast this card if you have 5 or less life, and it's just draw 2. Next we have Return to Hades. This is their revive card, so you can only cast this card if your life would become 0. Its cast cost is pay 3 gauge. Counter for this turn. For the next time your life would become 0, your life becomes 1. and you can only cast it once per game. Next, we have Shredding Battle Wall. So you can only cast this card if you are attacked and you have a weapon equipped. You nullify the attack and gain 1 life. So this is just a solid, like, any deck can run it defense spell. There's a couple of other ones, but this was the most standout one because the conditions are very easy, in which you have to have a weapon equipped, which a lot of Danger World decks, you want to have a weapon equipped anyway, or it is part of their strategy. And then it's just to nullify the attack and you gain 1 life. So it helps keep you in the game a little bit longer by gaining that 1 life, and sometimes just having multiple different defense spells. Next, we have Incomparable Tenkai. This is, even though it's a Godpunk card, it's just good enough to be able to be ran in basically any Danger World deck. Its call cost is pay 2 of your opponent's gauge and put the top card of your deck into its soul. If you have a weapon equipped on your field, this card's size gets reduced by 2. Then basically, other than your opponent's start phase, when the number of cards the opponent tries to draw, your opponent chooses a hand card and drops it. This helps control how much the opponent is going to be drawing. Then on top of all of that, it has Penetrate, Double Attack, and Soul Guard. It's just a really solid hand control kind of card, and it eats away at the opponent's gauge. It's just very solid. It interacts with weapons by reducing its size, which again, Danger World is kind of focused around weapons in a way. It's just a very solid card that can be ran in basically anything. Next, we have My Buddy, the Danger World version. There's only 2 different My Buddies in the game. There's the Dragon World and Danger World, and I think depending on the deck, the Danger World one can be played in interesting ways. So I know that in Godpunks, they have an interesting way to interact with My Buddy, but I just think having My Buddy is not necessarily the worst option in the world. So what this card does is if you have less than 4 buddies in your deck, you basically have this in your deck and it counts as your buddy when you buddy call it. The way Buddyfight used to work, and it still technically does, people just shortcut it, is you put the buddy monster from your hand into your buddy zone and move the buddy from your buddy zone onto the field. When playing this card, you're going to have to do that, but most people shortcut it by just playing the buddy from their hand and tapping their buddy because it's the same. But with My Buddy, it's a little bit different, and because it's different, it could have some interesting interactions. Next, we have Topfist, Vainglory, Brawlzeus. A lot of the Godpunk cards are kind of stapley in a way. Like, sometimes they're just that generically good, and both of the Brawlzeuses are pretty good, but I think Topfist is a little bit better for a more general sense. So its call cost is put a card from your opponent's field into the drop zone and pay 1 of your opponent's gauge, and your opponent pays 1 life. Most of the time, just calling him is very disruptive to the opponent's strategy. And then on top of that, he has Plunder, which is whenever this card attacks and destroys your opponent's monster or deals damage to your opponent, deal 2 damage to your opponent and you gain 2 life. He's just very generically good for what he does. Like, even if you just call him, like, just calling him is disruptive enough for some decks. And then lastly, we have Time General, Tubocas. This card is definitely interesting because it's a new card and it's coming out with the whole Time Dragon stuff in the new starter deck, and Time Dragons is getting support in SBT07, but this card comes in the starter deck and it's actually kind of good in borderline any Danger World deck. It has 4 crit, which is kind of important because it triggers immense pressure, and then on top of that, if you just don't want to ever call him, which he's free to call, you could use one of his 2 abilities or both of his abilities. You can either counter, drop this hand card, and you gain 3 life. So just a solid way of gaining life in case your life is low. So you could purposely let your life get low to trigger certain card effects and then use this card to boost your life back up to a healthy level. So then he has the other ability, Counter. Choose a card on your opponent's field. You may destroy a monster on your field and put this card from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck. If you do, destroy the chosen card. Not only does he help gain you life just by discarding him. He also can destroy one of the opponent's cards. It could be an item, could be a monster, could be a set spell. Doesn't necessarily matter because it's just destroying a card. And destroying one of your cards on your field, sometimes depending on the strategy, doesn't really hurt you at all, and sometimes it could benefit you, just like some other cards on this list, where sometimes you just want to destroy your own cards just for the benefit of whatever effect you're possibly getting. I think this card is just a super solid card and a great addition to Danger World. So that is my list of what I think Danger World staples are. Depending on the deck, there's deck-specific staples. I try not to include those because those are more deck-specific. This is just in general if you are looking for a particular card to fill a particular role. These are like generically good ones that can fit into a whole bunch of different slots in a whole bunch of different decks. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Buddyfight content, and I will see you in the next video.